If we could please welcome to the stage Pennyworth's showrunner and creator, Bruno Heller. Hi, Bruno. Take a seat. We also have Ben Aldridge, who plays the young Thomas Wayne. The mighty, melodious Paloma Faith, who plays the villainous Bet Sykes. And last but certainly not least, we have Mr. Alfred Pennyworth himself, Jack Bannon. I like these nice big chairs. They look like they come from Wayne Manor or something like that. It's very nice, very nice. So, Bruno, I'll start with you, if I may. Yes. Yeah, it would help. Yeah. Is it working?
Yeah.
Right.
Mic technique isn't great. So
Oh, okay. All right then.
I'll try and do.
Yeah, just generally hold it near the mouth. That
there.
usually does the trick.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. So you've already delved into the past of Batman's world with Gotham. Now you're delving even further into the past. We're in the 60s now. Why did you want to do that? I mean, what sort of drove you to make that dig?
Yeah. Well, selfishly, I wanted to be back in London, and I wanted to make a show in London, and this was the way to do it. But more than that, it's when you're working inside this DC Batman mythology, it's very hard to find stories that haven't really been dug over and worked a lot before. And here was a great origin story of a very well-known character that people really don't know how he got there. And God bless Michael Caine. I think he was the first person to say that Alfred was an ex-SAS soldier, which meant that opened up a whole other sort of range of stories you could tell, as opposed to someone who learned how to make tea and serve things on trays. Yeah. So there was this whole wonderful origin story that hadn't been told. So we did it.
So what would you say, I mean, stylistically at least, what's the big point of difference then between Pennyworth and Gotham? How is it aesthetically different, I guess?
Lots of ways. I mean, first off, I guess the main thing is London is not an imaginary city. London is a very real city, but it's also a city with its own folklore and mythology and strangeness and glamour and darkness. Also, being England, English people look crap in spandex. There's no English superheroes. No one's ever managed to make an English superhero. People in England are real. So I guess the difference is that you have to find a way of making real people glamorous and special and give them superpowers. Hence, these guys.
Well, in terms then of finding your Alfred, I mean, you're 20-something Alfred. What were you looking for? What did you need from an actor for that?
We were looking for intelligence, wit, and charm. And we didn't get it, but we got Jack Bannon instead.
All right. Well, that seems like a good, handy segue to bring in Jack. So, Jack, why did you want to play Batman's butler?
Well, I mean, I hadn't thought about it before, and then when we read the premise of this, and particularly for me, Bruno's brilliant script, that was sort of what grabbed me. And the SAS background's quite cool, and all the action and things like that, and the fashion of the 60s, everything about the show sort of grabbed me.
So it was good to get sort of suited and booted as Alfred.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Yeah.
Awesome. And I kind of noticed watching this that, obviously there's been other Alfreds before, obviously Sean Pertwee in Gotham, Michael Gough and Jeremy Irons, but you do seem to be channeling Sir Michael Caine more than any other previous Alfred. Why was that?
Well, I think, as Bruno said, he said, I'll play a butler as long as he's ex-SAS, so that it wouldn't have felt right to do an SAS story without giving him a nod. Also, personally, I think he was probably the best one.
Yeah.
And he was sort of the archetypal film star of the 60s. So with this being set in the 60s, that sort of felt right as well.
Yeah. I love that he's actually called Alfie a lot of the time as well, which, that kind of really rams it home, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And then, like, the soundtrack's very Roy Budd in style. You've kind of got all that going on. So it's a perfect fit. Paloma, hello. So could you please tell us about Bet Sykes? Because unless someone here knows better than me, I don't believe she's a character from Batman mythology or anything. So she's a new character. Who is she?
Bet Sykes is she keeps being called a villain, but I get quite upset when people call her a villain because I feel like there's a thin line in DC Universe between heroes and villains, and I think that's the reality in life as well. We're all capable of doing great things and we're all capable of doing terrible things given the circumstances. So Bet's she's a new character invented by Bruno. She's from the north of England. She kills people as her job, and she's very desensitized about it. And I think most people think she's a villain because they don't necessarily expect to see a woman or a maternal object, if you were, act in such a desensitized way. But, I don't subscribe to those generalizations. I feel like we're all human beings, and she does see it as her work. And personally, I kind of feel a lot of empathy towards her. I kind of agree with the people she knocks off. I'm like, she's never like knocking off someone who's really lovely. They always kind of deserve it, but obviously with the social constructs we live in, it would be horrific if I really killed somebody that I didn't like. Then it would probably mean the end of this character entirely. But I've had a great time playing her, and I think for us, we discuss a lot about how she adds a sort of another layer to the concept of the British class system, which is quite prominent in this world, and and today and back in the 60s, Britain is sort of inherently divided by class and all that comes with it. And I think for me, there's a lot of parallels between Bet and Alfred, because they're both essentially sort of predestined by being working class to serve or work under somebody else, and both of them feel they have the capacity to be their own boss.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what she sort of brings to the table.
Did you base her on anyone you knew, or did you draw on anyone for that performance?
When I first started doing castings, Danny Canon, who's one of the directors on the show, did say to me that he thought I should watch a lot of films on documentaries about Myra Hindley. But I kind of crossed her between Myra and this lady that used to work in the local co-op in Leeds when I lived there. And she'd sort of put her fruit and veg through, and she'd be chatting to somebody else at the same time. She'd be like, "Kathy, my Ronnie, oh, you wouldn't believe the woman he bought home, $2.99, love." And that's kind of that's Bet Sykes' thing, is like she's often thinking of something else. So she'll have just killed somebody, but then she'll be like worried about what they're going to have for tea.
Amazing. So Ben, hello. What was it like then? Sort of, we've seen Thomas Wayne a lot previously, but we don't get to see him for very long.
Yeah, it's pretty short-lived, isn't it?
Yeah, he doesn't last long.
Yeah, just dies.
Yeah. So what was it like to have the chance to really sort of dig into the character and actually like Alfred, we're quite surprised by what we learn about him. We see sides of him that we wouldn't expect. What was that like for you?
I think that's what the series looks at for both of them, is we know nothing about him as a young man, as a real man, and his past. And yeah, I was surprised to find that out when I was reading it as well. Kind of the world that he's caught up in Pennyworth. I know in the comics he's a surgeon, and in Pennyworth he's in a kind of much more kind of covert, shady. He's wrapped up in shady business, which makes him quite fun. And I think you're not quite sure what he does as the series moves along, and he's kind of this double agent. So yeah, it was really exciting to kind of flesh that out and discover these characters. I think as we were making the show, each time we opened an episode, we filmed it episode to episode. We were discovering new information every time about them, which is an exciting way to make a piece of TV.
Oh wow! I'd like to ask you what the biggest surprises were, but we don't want any. We don't want any
no spoilers.
But this isn't a spoiler. It's more about the character. I kind of like the fact that, again, Thomas Wayne, usually quite reverentially treated. He's like an icon in Bruce Wayne's life, and he looks up to his father, and he did all the great things for the city. But in this, he's a bit of a dick, isn't he?
That's an accident. That's just me. That's just what I brought to it naturally, actually. I guess he's slippery.
Yeah,
and I guess in terms of how Alfred sees him, he's a little bit annoying as well.
Yeah,
because he's always after him. But he's very dramatic and tense, and he's always kind of causing a scene. I'd say in every scene that he's in, it's high stakes. Yeah, and he's very stressed out. So, which is really fun to play because it's nothing like me.
No, I love the way that, at least I've seen 7 of the 10 episodes, just so you all know. And in virtually every time you come into a scene that Alfred is in, he rolls his eyes. He's kind of like, his eyes like, oh, not him again.
Yeah, that's just me and Ben. That's not,
I don't know if that's what Bruno wrote.
Yeah. But, it'd be very interesting to see how they could get to the point where one might actually work for the other.
Yeah, I think that was the thing about this. It quite easily could have been a sort of bromance kind of thing, but they don't really like each other, Alfred certainly, they're wary of each other, and I think each one has something that the other one needs. Thomas has money and status, which Alfred needs to get his business off the ground, and Thomas is a wimp, so he needs Alfred's street smarts,
Come on.
Yeah, to be fair, yeah, he does have his good side. He does have his moral core, doesn't he? I feel a bit bad about what I said now. I'm sorry.
That's all right. You're entitled to your opinion. It's fine. He's a dick.
I think it adds to the class thing, though, as well. It's like when you're working class, you do resent anybody who's come from money. Like, you're just like, oh, posh bastard. Yeah. And I feel like Alfred just looks at him and goes, posh bastard. Well, maybe the C word.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's American as well,
Cat.
Yeah. But the presentation of London in this show is fascinating. It's kind of like really interesting, counterfactual, dare I say, steampunk 60s kind of. How did you come up with that, Bruno? What was the what were you drawing on? What influences did you have?
It's really a mashup of London. It's my memories of London as a child in the 60s, and it's using Victorian London, 1970s London, even Elizabethan London, and mashing them all together and imagining that history had been slightly different. If Henry VIII hadn't chopped off Anne Boleyn's head, how would England been different over the years?
Yeah.
So just playing with that sort of stuff means you got a lot of freedom. It's both a recognisable London, but also very strange.
Yeah. So, did you all go back to 60s culture, pop culture, like maybe TV shows or the music of the time to try and get into the mindset? Did you do that?
Yeah, there was a bit of that, I think, because as I said, all this is before the comics, so that as source. But I decided, rather than, as good as they are, read thousands and thousands of comics, I'd not do that, and instead we watched some of the Michael Caine films like Ipcris File and things like that. There was a Spotify playlist that nobody else seems to have heard about, but Danny Canon made a Spotify playlist, which I sort of listened to a bit, but it wasn't that good. So, but popular culture was much more of a starting point research-wise than comics, actually.
Okay. How about you, Paloma? Did you sort of dig into any classic 60s shows or albums?
Not really, but I didn't have to because I was raised by a woman who is absolutely obsessed by that era. So I've spent my entire life researching for this show because I've basically like had it force-fed down. My mum's biggest disappointment in life is that I couldn't have seen it. So, yeah, I didn't need to. I was brought up watching reruns of Ready, Steady, Go. Just everything. The lyrics, the protests, the fashion. Like, my mum's got all the old clothes and I used to dress up in them when I was little. And yeah, wow. I've had it, a lot of it.
Okay. And you, Ben? Did you got any sort of favourite 60s reference points?
Well, then, I think it was like when I went and met these guys from audition, they were talking about Cary Grant. So as kind of something they were basing the character on, or someone they're basing the character on. So yeah, started watching his films and kind of trying to be as charming and magnetic as him, which was, a mean feat. But yeah, so like North by Northwest was an incredible film to watch, and it's almost in a kind of similar predicament in episode 1 and throughout in a way. So that was a good thing to kind of take some inspiration from, for sure. Mm.
But at the same time, we were trying to not make it a sort of a strict period show. Like I say, it's a mashup. So even with the music, I think the first live music you hear on the show is an Amy Winehouse tune, because memories like that. Enough. Things that happened in the past are all mashed up together.
Yeah. I mean, Bruno, did you look at the comic books yourself in terms of how they present the history of this era, or is this entirely kind of your own alternate reality world?
Yeah, this is pretty much our alternative reality. And like I said before, we're lucky that this isn't really a place and time that has been examined a lot. Certainly not in the Batman mythology. So we had a free hand. But as soon as you start taking a free hand in this thing, there's so much about London and visually and in the literature and in movies that just lend itself to storytelling. David Lean was a big influence on the way it looks. Hammer horror movies. You could go on. Dickens.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. Again, no spoilers, but yeah, no, I can see what you're saying. I mean, there was it gets a bit Ken Russell in places. I think is that fair to say?
Yeah, I guess that's fair enough. Ken Russell, in the sense that you can take liberties without going over the top here, because anything is possible. For instance, we have Jack the Ripper's grandson is in the show, and why not? Later on, we'll have Jekyll and Hyde in the show. Those English folkloric characters are kind of our substitute for superheroes and supervillains.
Mm. Yeah, actually, you mentioning Mr. Ripper, Danny. It was good to see Danny Webb pop up. There's a great supporting cast here, including, I was pleased to see Felicity Kendall as well.
Felicity Kendall as a sorceress. You not often get Felicity Kendall as a master of the black arts.
Indeed not. How was it working with Felicity, Jack?
She was great, yeah. She was a real saucy sorceress. Yeah, she was good.
Sexy sorceress.
There you go. No, she was great.
Cool. I mean, it's pretty full on with the action and the violence. Paloma, you get hit in the face with a tea kettle at one point, which was fun. Was it? I don't know. Was it fun? Was it good doing the action?
She loved it.
Yeah.
I loved doing. I mean, the action was great and nice to sort of put it on your CV. I've done a bit of this, a bit of that. But for me, like, what I liked the most really was the writing, and it's not because he's sitting there, but I feel like he's such a clever writer, because as you watch it, we believed it as much as you will believe it when you see it. Like, it got to a point about halfway through making the show where you'd know already what you were going to say while you're reading it, and then that's what he's written, and it's sort of, it was just brilliant the way that, I don't know.
Predictable.
No.
No, quite the opposite. I think I agree. It got to the stage where you didn't even. I feel, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you, Bruno, we knew the characters so well by that point, and then you sort of start writing for our version of the characters, and it becomes this loop where you actually rarely need to learn your lines. You
don't know whether it's you or the character. Like there's this one bit where I got to do a scene in the kitchen, and I say, "I'm restless. I'm a caged animal." I was just like, "Oh my God, he's really been listening to me off set." Like, that's basically my general attitude.
And how was it for you, Jack? To sort of getting tooled up and getting into action as Alfred.
Yeah, it was good fun. I mean, you need to be careful, don't you? Saying, "Oh, it's great, all these guns and whatnot," but it was. I mean, there's a fantastic place in London on the outskirts where it's a street of terraced houses, and you go down a sort of alleyway behind which is the biggest armoury in the country that has, from medieval times through to modern day, fantasy, real things. It's about 4 floors. So if there's a zombie outbreak, I know where I'm going, basically. But we got locked in there for a couple of days with these sort of weapons geeks. No offence if they're here. And they sort of taught us how to use everything, and it was fantastic. Yeah, so that was good. And a bit of trivia, the gun that Alfred uses was made for Roger Moore in Wild Geese.
Oh, wow.
But he didn't want it. He said, "Oh, no, it's rubbish." So they didn't get used, and now we've ended up with it. So.
Niche trivia.
Yeah, niche trivia. There you go.
That's very good. But the thing with Alfred is, and one thing I really love about him as a character is, actually he'd rather talk his way out of the situation.
Yeah, exactly. That was always a thing. He says, "I don't like doing violence," and unfortunately, sometimes that's the only way that he can get out of a situation. But he's always looking at the greater good, and if it means he has to do bad things to eventually get there, then he's prepared to do it. But yeah, his sharp wit is sort of almost a lot more dangerous than any physical thing he's carrying. Yeah.
Have you learned from him, from being him? Do you think you could, talk your way out of any situation now?
He just beats people up.
No, there were times because we shot for 6 months, and towards the end of those 6 months, there were a couple of occasions where I'd be sat in a pub in London as Jack Bannon in real life, and something had happened at the bar, and I'd be looking, going like, and friends would go, No, you are not capable of sorting this out. Sit down and don't get involved. And I'm thinking, well, I could go over there and say something smart, but luckily never did.
No, he's a very, very capable man. I was very impressed by him. But okay, it's kind of a question for all of you. Everyone sort of pitch in. But what is it then that you think it is about the Batman story that makes it sort of something that people can go back into and explore further? I mean, this is a whole new area that's never been delved into before. But why is it? Why has it become something that really hooks people and fascinates them? What do you think?
I think it's because people keep returning back to Batman because it's inherently about the human condition. It's about the torment that one faces just as a human being, and people relate to that. And I've never met anybody who's had a life without, its peaks and troughs. And I mean, it was only the other day that my mum and I were talking, and she said, "I think people who just sail through, that's an illusion. There's no such thing as that." So I feel like for me, there's such a wealth and depth of the way it's written, of sort of philosophical questions about existence, and being morally pulled or faced with circumstances in your life where there's no such thing as right or wrong. And I feel like as kids we kind of grow up thinking we wish that life was about right or wrong, but in Batman we see that it's not always as simple as that sometimes the right thing is, like you said with Alfred, sometimes involves a lot of wrong things, or the wrong thing maybe had an intention of being the right thing, or these mistakes. And for me, when I watch previous Batman films and when I watch Pennyworth, it makes me question, all of those themes just about being a human being and like empathizing with other human beings.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think about that, Bruno? I mean, what's your thoughts on the whole Batman?
Why is Batman? So I think everyone feels like they're an orphan. Everyone wears a mask, and everyone wants revenge.
Bloody bad.
Who's annoyed you?
Yeah, shit.
I'm sure if we took an audience poll, everyone would have someone or something they wanted to get their own back about.
Okay. Hands up, who wants revenge? That's pretty good.
There you go.
All right, fair enough.
I want to know the guy with the ears. What's the sort of revenge does he want?
Who do you want revenge on?
His stylist.
Actually, I've got to confess, I actually know who that is. That's Mike.
All right, Mike.
Hi, Mike.
Hello, Mike. All right. So, Bruno, when you were sort of conceiving Pennyworth, putting it together, I mean, how close did you want to draw the threads between it and Gotham? I mean, are you, in your head, is it? It's on the same timeline, or are you just exploring another alternative kind of past?
Well, both really. I think it's an alternative path. The beauty of the Batman mythology is now large enough that there is several strands that can operate at the same time that don't necessarily jibe with each other. If you try and create a world that is consonant with all the canonical versions, you end up with a mess, or you end up with a very sort of vanilla version of it. We've taken the liberty of and the time frame, taken that liberty to just tell a story in and of itself. Really, with the bottom line there, trying to tell a story that would work if you didn't know who Batman was, and or had no particular affiliation with it. It's just a good story in its own right.
Yeah. I mean, so, for you, Ben, it's kind of, do you see Thomas Wayne? Are you thinking, well, he's going to be Batman's dad, and therefore he's got to get to this point at some point in his future, and that's how you work the character out, or?
Paloma just said I had to do my hashtag, which is Bat Daddy.
Bat Daddy.
Bat Daddy.
Hashtag Bat Daddy.
Hashtag Bat Daddy.
Amazing.
I guess. Hello. I guess, yeah. We know, in a way, yeah. We know where they end up, and we know that he ends up as kind of the upright, upstanding citizen of Gotham, this philanthropist, this kind of strong moral backbone. So yeah. Definitely, I think I've got my eyes on that, but it would be boring if he was just that straight away. So I think kind of what it does explore and what it's hopefully going to explore more is that, how he gets to being that good person. He's put in a lot of morally compromising positions throughout the series, and hopefully more if we do more. Yeah. And it's kind of ends up being drawn into a darkness that he doesn't know that exists within him, without spoiling too much. So yeah, it's knowing where it's going, but kind of taking an interesting route.
Right.
There. Because that's, just that's the challenge here is that the audience knows exactly where it's going as well. So if you play into where it's going, then you're just telling people what they already know. It's much more like finding out about your parents' life before you were born, Those are the interesting things, not the ones that follow the path you already know.
Yeah, I went home recently, about 2 months ago, and was looking through an old photo album of my parents that I'd never seen before in the 70s. And they were kind of hippies, and I didn't know anything about that period of their life. And I would say it's a little bit like that. It's a little bit like Martha and Thomas. It's kind of opening the family photo album, seeing who they were. And I think that's like kind of fascinating in a way. There's a lot of intrigue as to what their DNA and their personalities, what of them then goes into become Batman.
Yeah, it's very difficult, isn't it? Imagining your parents as being the same age as you know, and kind of doing, I don't know, the stupid things, kind of things you do when you're young and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, my dad wore crop tops. Wow. Crop tops and bell bottoms and platform shoes, and had long ginger, like a little belly top. Yeah. I was so impressed. I was like,
Thomas
yes.
Wayne season 2.
Yeah, there we go,
Costume
yeah.
sorted.
Thank you for that, Jack.
Yeah. Awesome. And for you, Jack, I mean, it's a similar sort of thing. I mean, do you kind of fix in your mind, this is where Alfred's going to end up, this is who he's going to be, or do you just have to dispel that entirely and be your own Alfred?
I think, similar to Ben, it's sort of in the back of your head, but, you know, without getting too actory about it, Alfred himself doesn't know that yet, where that's going. So actually, he's discovering it as he goes on. So I'm trying to do that with him, if you see what I mean, rather than... Because we don't know what's going to happen, do we? I never thought I'd be at London Comic-Con. You know, in life, you do. It's just strange things happen. So discovering that with him is sort of, I think, keeps it a bit fresher.
Okay, cool. Right, we're gonna go over to questions from you guys in a few minutes. So I think there'll be a microphone going around. So if you stick your hand up when we're ready, so have a think. But just before we do that, I just have to sort of ask, because obviously, you know, people over here, we haven't seen season 1 yet, so that's still to come for us. But I was wondering, you know, is there a plan for a season 2? Is this going on?
There is a plan for season 2, and we've started writing it, and hopefully we'll start shooting it in January.
Oh, fantastic! Great news.
Yeah,
all right.
That's news.
And are you three looking forward to that?
Well, not all 3 of them necessarily going to be in it, but
Yeah, well, that's. Yeah. I thought as I was asking the question, I thought actually maybe, but.
Are we looking forward to it?
Yeah.
I think we're all curious to see where it goes. We really don't know. I guess that's in Bruno's mind.
that's the trouble with casting actors for roles that you can't kill. You have to be sure that they're good people.
Yeah.
I can be killed, though.
But no,
I can't, but I can go on holiday somewhere.
We could all go to the Caribbean on a group holiday.
Yeah, that's where season 2
as part of
set.
the narrative.
Yes, they all go on holiday season. I like those ones. They're great.
season 4.
Yeah. And you, Jay, are you looking forward?
Am I looking forward to it? Yeah, of course. Yeah. I think, I mean, this is the best job I've ever done, and we get to shoot it in London, where I live and where I love, and yeah, I can't wait.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay, well, look, I promised there could be questions. Now, someone over here did have their hand up, like, straight away earlier. Let's get the mic to them. Cheers.
Hiya, this is for everyone. What was it like working with Emma Corrin, and how do you think she'll do as Princess Diana in The Crown?
She was fantastic.
She's amazing. I think she kind of... there's something about her that is of a different period as a person, which I think she'll bring to Diana and which she brings to Esme in this as well. I don't think she even necessarily knows about it, but there is something kind of definitely lived previously or exists in a different period to now. So,
yeah, I spend a lot of time with her because I'm not allowed to give anything away, but am I allowed to say that I'm in love with her in the show, and but also out of the show? I think the casting of her, you know, as Diana, as soon as we found out she was that, we were like, oh my God, it's so perfect. There's something of that kind of person about her. And in our show, that adds to the characters she plays also, where there's kind of like a kind of juxtaposition between like an inner strength and the external vulnerability. And I feel like that plays, you know, lends itself really well to her character in Pennyworth, and hopefully will go on to do that in The Crown, because obviously that's what Diana embodied.
Yeah, she was lovely. I think she's going to be great. I've spoken to her a bit. She's getting on all right. So, yeah, I think it'll be good.
Good stuff. Cool. Right. Any more questions? Well, this gentleman at the front and... Oh, we'll go one over there. Sorry, the mic's over there already. We'll come back over.
Is it on? Oh, hello. This is kind of for all of you as a group and individually. As we go away and watch the show, what for you would you say we need to look out for? Like, are there any particular moments or any bits that we might miss or might think, oh my God, that's the bit we had to watch in that episode?
It's a strange thing to say, but I'd say sometimes I think there are lots of surprises in it, but sometimes watch the background because there are some really weird things. The strongest thing, one of the things I like most about it is the world in which these guys have created, and it's kind of this nostalgic, all at once familiar version of 1960s London that's completely flipped on its head and twisted and made 13 degrees weirder. And part of that is our supporting artists and the background artists and the costumes of it. And you'll be in a normal scene, but someone will wheel a seemingly normal scene, and someone will wheel a pig in a pram through the background, and it gets weirder and weirder, I think, as it goes along. So I would say watch out for that, because it's a very interesting world to try and get to know. It's completely different to our world. It has different rules and different structure, different politics, different entertainment. So, yeah.
Does anyone else have any favourite non-spoiler moments that we should watch out for?
The pig was a spoiler, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's a pretty major plot point.
You can watch the whole show to find it as well.
Yeah.
I don't even know when that is. There's grannies with guns, which is quite fun.
Yeah.
There's lots, but I agree with Ben, really. The world and the sort of richness of the world is worth looking out for, yeah.
We do execute Jimmy Savile at one point.
Oh, yeah.
Do you?
I don't know if that's
Worth watching for.
I'm going to have to rewatch that episode. I didn't spot that.
James.
No, well, it's in the background.
It's subtle, but he's there.
Good. Right.
Hi guys. Hello. Hi guys. Just because it's set in the 60s, was it influenced by the 60s Batman TV series? Did you have any influence?
Thwack.
Was the 60s Batman an influence, Bruno?
No. Not because that's not a great show, but because, you'd have to get into a whole sort of analysis of the Batman Earth to really get to the bottom of that. But it's camp, and it's tough to, once you hit that camp note, it's tough to ever get back to serious, whereas the best Batmans can do both. You can be funny, you can be scary, you can be deep and fun at the same time. That is pure fun,
We've got a little bit of camp, though, haven't we? We've got a little bit of camp.
Oh, yeah, we've got a little bit of camp. But you can, if it's all camp, then
Yeah.
Did you guys
having a camp conversation about it?
You didn't go to did you just for a laugh, or was the Batman 60s Batman ever on in the background at any point, or you kind of?
No, I thought you were going to say, did you go to the Batcave, which I did. Oh. Did you? Because Paloma's friend in LA took me to the original Batcave where they shot it up
Bronson
in
Canyon.
Yeah. So I've been there.
Oh wow!
But no, we didn't have it on in the makeup truck or anything. No.
Is the Bat computer still there?
Well, it's an amazing place, but it's essentially just a tunnel, and we had to hike up there. It took hours. We got there, and I was like, well, yeah, I mean, without Batman, it's just a hole in a rock.
Oh well. Okay. Right. Any more questions, sir? Okay.
Similar topic, because you say that you didn't go back to the 60s in terms of the atmosphere, but watching the show, some of the camera angles, it does get skew-if, and the camera's turned on its side and it gets really surreal. Was that more Danny Canon and the directors, or was that a purpose thing to throw the audience off balance? It's brilliantly done.
Yeah, that's very much Danny brought his rich visual style to it, and those Dutching techniques and making things strange is very much part of not so much the Batman tradition, but certainly the English scary tradition, going back again to David Lean and Hammer Horror, and just the way you want to shoot London begs for that sort of treatment.
All right. We've got a question back there?
I think, we've got time for just one more, I believe.
Okay, all right then. Last question, no pressure.
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to ask the cast, before you started your roles, did you ever meet any of the previous Batman actors to get inspiration?
Did we meet them? No, and I'd like to. So if you know any of them, that would be great. Did you meet any of them? No.
Not for this, though. I did meet. I was. Thank you. I was in a film years ago called The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus. So I was acting alongside Heath Ledger in that. Unfortunately, he actually passed away during making that film. But that's the closest I've ever come to another actor who's been in this universe.
So which Batman would you most like to meet out of all of them then?
I like Christian Bale. I think he's my favourite.
Yeah. Ben, which Batman should be which Batman is your ideal son?
I think my introduction to DC and to Batman were the Tim Burton films.
Yeah.
So, who was it that played it? I've forgotten his name.
Michael Keaton.
Michael Keaton. So it would be Michael Keaton, I think, in terms of me like first coming across it. Michael Keaton.
Same.
Yeah, there we go.
Adam West.
Adam West. Yeah.
See, he knew what to say. I wish I
could beat up.
Fantastic. Well, okay. Well, guys, on that note,
thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks for coming.
We hope you enjoy the show.
and thank you guys too. Take care. Cheers.